Hey guys, let's do Read Aloud Day 3. I'm going to play the Quiet Down song because it's been a while. Let's see if I remember how to play it. Okay, not bad. Okay, here we go. The Hobbit. Let's see where we are. I'm excited. I really like this book. Oh, remember I was singing? Yeah. I watched myself sing the other night when I was editing the video and I wasn't very impressed. Okay. And of course they did none of these dreadful things, and everything was cleaned and put away safe as quick as lightning, while the Hobbit was turning round and round in the middle of the kitchen, trying to see what they were doing. And then they went back and found Thorin with his feet on the fender, smoking a pipe. He was blowing the most enormous smoke rings, and wherever he told one to go, it went. Up the chimney, or behind the clock on the mantelpiece, or under the table, or round and round the ceiling. But wherever it went, it was not quick enough to escape Gandalf. Pop! He sent a smaller smoke ring from his short clay pipe straight through each of Thorin's. Then Gandalf's smoke ring would go green and come back to hover over the wizard's head. He had a cloud of them about him already, and in the dim light it made him look strange and sorcerous. Bilbo stood still and watched. He loved smoke rings, and then he blushed to think how proud he had been yesterday morning of the smoke rings he had sent up the wind over the hill. "Now for some music," said Thorin. "Bring out the instruments." Keely and Feely rushed to their bags and brought back little fiddles. Dori, Nori, and Ori brought out flutes from somewhere inside their coats. Bombur produced a drum from the hall. Bifur and Bofer went out too and came back with clarinets that they had left among the walking sticks. Dwalin and Balin said, "Excuse me, I left mine in the porch." "Just bring mine in with you," said Thorin. And they came back with voiles as big as themselves, and with Thorin's harp wrapped in a green cloth. It was a beautiful golden harp, and when Thorin struck it, the music began all at once, so sudden and so sweet that Bilbo forgot everything else and was swept away into the dark lands under strange moons, far over the water and very far from his hobbit hole under the hill. From the dark came into the room from a little window that opened in the side of the hill. The firelight flickered. It was April, and they still played on, while the shadow of Gandalf's beard wagged against the wall. The dark filled all the room, and the fire died down, and the shadows were lost, and still they played on, and suddenly, first one and then another began to sing as they played, deep-throated singing of the dwarves in the deep places of their ancient homes. And this is a fragment of their song. It can be like their song without their music. Look at this. I have to play and sing again. Let's see. Here we go. Ooh, but I'm going to show you the picture first. This is a really cool picture. I hope you can see that. Not bad, huh? All right, let's see how long the song is. Okay, here we go. Now, this one's supposed to be a little bit sad. So, yesterday I played a happy song, and we used major keys. And so the major keys make it sound like happy, happy, happy. But we're going to play some minor keys now. So, here we go. Far over the misty mountains cold. Let's see. Dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day to seek the pale enchanted gold. Wars of yore made mighty spells, while hammers fell like ringing bells in places deep where dark things sleep, in hollow halls beneath the fells. For ancient kings and elvish lord, their many a golden hoard, they shaped and wrought, and light they caught to hide in gems on hilt of sword. On silver necklaces they sang, the flowing stars on crowds they hung. The dragon fire and twisted wire, they meshed the light of moon and sun. Hey, I'm getting better at this. For over the misty mountains cold, dragons deep in caverns old, we must away ere break of day to claim our long forgotten gold. Goblets they carried there for themselves, harps of gold where no man delves. elves. There they lay long, many a song was sung unheard by men or elves. The pines were roaring on the height, winds were moaning in the night. Fire was red and flaming spread, trees like torches blazed with light. The bells were ringing in the dale, and men looked up with faces pale. Dragons' ire, more than fierce than fire, laid low their towers and houses frail. Mountains smoked beneath the moon. Dwarves, they heard the tramp of doom. They fled their hall of dying fall. Beneath his feet, beneath the moon, far over the misty mountains grim, to dungeons deep and caverns dim, we must away ere break of day to win our hearts of gold from him. Hey, not bad. Okay, here we go. Let's get back to the story. As they sang, the Hobbit felt the love of beautiful things made by hands and by cunning and by magic moving through him, a fierce and jealous love, the desire of the hearts of dwarves. And then something tookish woke up inside, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves, and wear a sword instead of a walking stick. He looked out of the window, and the stars were out in the dark sky above the trees. He thought of the jewels of the dwarves shining in dark caverns. Suddenly, in the wood beyond the water, a flame leapt up, probably somebody lighting a wood fire, and he thought of plundering dragons settling on his quiet hill and kindling at all the flames. He shuddered, and very quickly he was plain Mr. Baggins, a bag end under the hill again. He got up trembling. He had less than half a mind to fetch the lamp, and more than half a mind to pretend to, and go and hide behind the beer barrels in the cellar, and not come out again until all the dwarves had gone away. Suddenly he found that the music and the singing had stopped, and they were all looking at him with eyes shining in the dark. "Where are you going?" said Thorin, in a tone that seemed to show that he guessed both halves of the Hobbit's mind. What about a little light?" said Bilbo apologetically. "We like the dark," said all the dwarves. "Dark for dark business. There are many hours before dawn." "Of course," said Bilbo, and sat down in a hurry. He missed the stool and sat in the fender, knocking over the poker and shovel with a crash. "Hush," said Gandalf, "let Thorin speak." And this is how Thorin began. "Gandalf, dwarves, and Mr. Baggins, we are met together in the house of our friend and fellow conspirator, the most excellent and audacious Hobbit. May the hair on his toes never fall out. All praise to his wine and ale." He paused for breath and for a polite remark from the Hobbit, but the compliments were quite lost on poor Bilbo, who was wagging his mouth in protest at being called audacious, and worst of all, fellow conspirator. Though no noise came out, he was so fluxen, so Thorin went on. "We are met to discuss our plans, our ways, means, policy, and devices. We shall soon, before the break of day, start our long journey, a journey from which some of us, perhaps all of us, except our friend and counselor, the ingenious wizard, Gandalf, may never return. In a solemn moment, our object is, I take it, well known to us all. The estimable Mr. Baggins, and perhaps one or two of the younger dwarves. I think I should be right in naming Keely and Feely, for instance. The exact situation at the moment may require a little brief explanation." This was Thorin's style. He was an important dwarf. If he had been allowed, he would probably have gone on like this until he was out of breath, without telling anyone there anything that was not already known. But he was rudely interrupted. Poor Bilbo could bear it no longer. At may never return, he began to feel a shriek coming up inside him, and very soon it burst out like a whistle of an engine coming out of a tunnel. All the dwarves sprang up, knocking over the table. Gandalf struck a blue light on the end of his magic staff, and in its fireworks glare, the poor little hobbit could be seen kneeling on the hearth rug, shaking like jelly that was melting. Then he fell flat on the floor and kept calling out, struck by lightning, over and over again, and that was all they could get out of him for a long time. So they took him and laid him out of the way on the drawing room sofa with a drink at his elbow, and they went back to their dark business. "Excitable little fellow," said Gandalf as they sat down again. "Gets funny queer fits, but he's one of the best, as fierce as a dragon in a pinch." If you have ever seen a dragon in a pinch, you will realize that this was only poetical exaggeration applied to a hobbit. Even to old Took's great-granduncle Bull Roarer, who was so huge for a hobbit he could ride a horse. He charged the ranks of goblins on Mount Graham in the Battle of the Green Fields and knocked Gulfumbler's head clean off with a wooden club. It sailed 100 yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole. And it is in this way the battle was won and the game of golf invented at the same time. In the meanwhile, however, Bullroar's gentler descendant was reviving on the drawing room floor. After a while and a drink, he crept nervously to the door of the parlor, and this is what he heard, Gloin speaking. Huh, or some snort more or less like that. Will he do you think? It is all very well for Gandalf to talk about this hobbit being fierce, but one shriek like that in a moment of excitement would be enough to wake the dragon and all his relatives and kill the lot of us. I think it sounded more like fright than excitement. In fact, if it had not been for the sign on the door, I should have been sure we had come to the wrong house. As soon as I clapped eyes on the little fellow bobbing and puffing on the mat, I had my doubts. He looks more like a grocer than a burglar. Then Mr. Baggins turned the handle and went in. The Took side had won. He suddenly felt he would go without bed and breakfast to be fierce. As for the little fellow bobbing on the mat, it almost made him really fierce. Many a time afterwards, the Baggins part regretted what he did now, and he said to himself, Bilbo, you are a fool. You walked right in and put your foot in it. Pardon me, he said. If I have overheard words that you were saying, I don't pretend to understand what you are talking about, or your reference to burglars. But I think I am right in believing, this is what he called being on his dignity, that you think I am no good. I will show you. I have no signs on my door. It was painted a week ago. I am quite sure you have come to the wrong house. As soon as I saw your funny faces on the doorstep, I had my doubts, but treat it as the right one. Tell me what you want done, and I will try it. If I have to walk from here to the east of east and fight the wild wereworms in the last desert, I had a great-great-great-granduncle once Bullroar took, and yes, but that was a long time ago, said Gloin. I was talking about you, and I assure you there is a mark on your door, the usual one in the trade, or used to be. Burglar wants a good job, plenty of an excitement, reasonable reward. And that's how it is usually read. You can say expert treasure hunter instead of burglar if you like. Some of them do. It's all the same to us. Gandalf told us that there was a man of sort in these parts looking for a job at once, and that he had arranged for a meeting here this Wednesday, tea time. Of course there's a mark, said Gandalf. I put it there myself, for very good reasons. You asked me to find the 14th man for your expedition, and I chose Mr. Baggins. Just let anyone say I chose the wrong man or the wrong house, and you can stop at 13 and have all the bad luck you like, or go back to digging coal. He scowled so angrily at Gloin that the dwarf huddled back in his chair, and when Bilbo tried to open his mouth to ask a question, he turned and frowned at him and stuck out his bushy eyebrows till Bilbo shut his mouth tight with a snap. That's right, said Gandalf. Let's have no more argument. I have chosen Mr. Baggins, and that ought to be enough for all of you. If I say he's a burglar he is, or will be when the time comes. There is a lot more in him than you guess, and a deal more than he has any idea of himself. You may possibly all live to thank me yet. Now, Bilbo, my boy, fetch the lamp, and let's have a little light on this. Okay, we'll read some more tomorrow. Thanks, guys.